course. There's only one way to start a meeting. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate everybody's time here today. Thank you for joining our Power Platform Master Series. My name is Andrew Albertson, part of our great TS Power Platform group here in the South OU here at Microsoft. I probably talked to a lot of you on the phone before. If not, nice to meet you. Looking forward to chatting Copilot Studio here with you guys today. I just kind of want to jump on camera here to say hello to start, but I'm going to go off camera as I do a lot of hand movements and karate chops. So we'll jump in. I'm going to be talking to you about Copilot Studio. So I'll give a good overview of Copilot Studio. We'll set some ground rules for what Copilot means here at Microsoft. And then I'll hand it over to my main man, Nico Sproti on my team, who's going to talk to you and dive a little bit more in depth around Copilot Studio and Azure AI Studio. So a lot of great stuff on the agenda here today, and looking forward to kind of talking Copilot Studio overview here to start. So as you can see, we have thousands of customers that are already using Copilot Studio to date, right? And those are enterprise-grade solutions, both being used for external and internal use cases. So if you need to reach customers or if you need to reach internal employees, Copilot Studio can get that done. It's proven in the field. It's proven at very large scales and is very scalable to fit your enterprise needs. So we have a lot of great use cases. We're happy to share those with you. Always feel free to reach out to anybody on our team or any of your SSPs. They have these kind of in-depth stories they can hand out as well. So when we start to think about Copilot Studio, and if you are just starting your generative AI journey, or you're already in it, right? You already have a use case you want to attack. I always recommend starting at Copilot Studio. Now, I might be a little biased because I'm on the Power Platform team and I'm a TS, so I work in that every day. But I do think it really does sit at a great point of our stack, mostly because it sits within our low-code platform on the Power Platform. So it gives you a lot of flexibility to start fast, start with a little bit of overhead, be able to build quickly. But also, if you need to expand to a more in-depth, developer-friendly scenario, it can extend to Azure AI and pull that in. So I can start fast and effectively and efficiently and decide if I need to bring in more developers or what I can do, right? And hopefully, we can chase down these use cases together without having to go to a more pro-dev-friendly, right? That's why we think Copilot Studio is great. It's because you can utilize all of these great connectors that come with the Power Platform. We've got some of them kind of identified here in our different department use cases. But you can use those building blocks that come with the Power Platform, the things that make it a great low-code platform, to start to build your custom Copilots here today. As well as another great reason we love starting at Copilot Studio is, this doesn't just have to be an IT project, right? As you can see, we've got all these great use cases for different departments around many organizations. IT departments are backlogged like crazy, right? They're always getting more requests to build more things for the business. But Copilot Studio is a great way to engage other departments, right? Get them building from a low-code perspective, get them working on the solutions they need, and they can utilize things like Power Automate in the background and these out-of-the-box connectors to get started, right? And to reach the data they need or reach the knowledge sources they need or reach the people they need, right? And they can build that quickly without a lot of development and overhead involved in that. So probably a little bit biased in the Copilot Studio part, but it is a great, efficient way to get started in your Gen AI journey and bring those use cases, right? We're happy to dive in. We've got a lot of great examples that we can share with you guys. So before we dive in completely to Copilot Studio, let's actually take a little bit of a step back, maybe a giant step back, and let's talk about what actually the term Copilot means here at Microsoft. So I've been talking for about 5 minutes or so. I probably said the word Copilot more than 10 times, right? Probably 20 by now. We have used the term a lot. We've branded it a lot. We've released all kinds of different products with Copilot in the name. So I want to take a step back, look at this slide, and we can kind of identify and define the categories in which Microsoft identifies Copilots internally, right? So that'll help you decide where you should start and how you can get started. So I'm going to start on the left over here in our first category, and that's our in-product or embedded copilots. You probably heard them called embedded copilots before, within our different Microsoft ecosystem products. So since most of the people on this call are Power Platform folks, you have probably already used these inside of the different Power Platform products. Power Apps, Power Automate. I mean, almost every single product on the Power Platform has a describe it to design it feature. I'm calling that one out here down below. And if I just pull this over, you can kind of get a glimpse at it. Right, I'm on my Power Automate page. And on my home page here, I have a describe it to design it feature. So this is a great example of that embedded in-product Copilot inside of Power Automate that is very purpose-driven and is going to help me do one thing better, right? So I can just use one of these prompts to kind of get it quickly up and running. As you can see, this prompt's going to help me pull in my Excel actions and conditions that I need, and I can quickly hit next, and it's helping me build a cloud flow very quickly. So this in-product Copilot got me off the ground and running very fast. It pulled in the actions I needed into a Power Automate flow, and as you can see this. You could see the embedded in-product Copilot here as well, right? But the good thing about these is if I were to actually try and say, what's the weather today in Tampa, Florida, which is where I'm at, these are not meant to go out to the internet, right? They're not meant to be extensible. They are built right into these products to help you do something faster. So if I was going to ask it about a condition or a certain action I could pull into this cloud flow, it would do great, but I'm not going to be able to do anything outside of what it's meant and its purpose is to be here. So key thing to remember there is our in-product ones are built into the products, not extensible, but they're going to help you build fast. Other great examples of those, if any of you have used process mining, right? I'll pull this back over here really quickly so we can have more of a visual instead of just staring at a screen, right? If anybody's used process mining inside of Power Automate, it also has a great in-product Copilot built into it. If you're not familiar with process mining, it's a way that you can ingest a lot of data within your organization to analyze that as a whole. As you can see, I've got just a sample accounts receivable process. Once again, I've got a Copilot embedded here to help me analyze this data. So this Copilot, very specific, in-product, going to help me analyze this data that I've updated. So two great examples of in-product Copilots, and that's our first category here on the left. Once again, you've seen this describe it to design it in probably every product on the Power Platform. I think it's currently in preview and available in Copilot Studio itself as well. So it's officially made it to all of our Power Platform products. But you've also seen it in things like Word and PowerPoint, right? The things that are helping you design your presentations or helping you do things inside of Word, right? Those are embedded in product Copilots that are helping you do something specific. Once again, not extensible, right? Just purpose-driven. As we move our way over here to the right, we reach our first-party Copilots. So that's our next category. Great examples of that are Copilot for M365 and Copilot for GitHub, right? Those are our two probably most famous and most successful examples of first-party Copilots. I think I heard, I'm probably months old on this stat, but not too long ago, over 40% of code was being written in GitHub with the help of Copilot to date. I'm sure that's probably even more now, but a great example of a first-party Copilot inside of our ecosystem. And the difference here is Microsoft builds and develops these products to be deployed inside the rest of the Microsoft ecosystem. So in the example of Copilot for M365, right, that's going to go land inside your Teams or inside your Outlook, and it's going to help you do purpose-driven things inside those products. Right? It's a very useful tool. It helps you search your data and documents and data across your enterprise using the Microsoft Graph connectors in the background. So it's a very impressive tool, but that is part of our first-party Copilots category there. And they differ from the first category being they are somewhat extensible. So in that example of using Copilot for M365, if I were to want to connect that experience to, say, ServiceNow or Salesforce, and I'll pull this over for another visual here. I've pulled up Teams, right? I've got the Copilot that exists in Teams here. If I want to connect this experience, this Copilot, to, say, ServiceNow or Salesforce or any of those other SaaS providers I might have, I'm can do that with Copilot Studio, right? So I would build those plugins, those extensions inside of Copilot Studio, and that would allow me to extend these first-party Copilots. So I'll pull this back over here. That was just to give us visibility there. But that's the main difference, right? There's obviously a lot of big differences between these two categories. But from an extensibility perspective, I can extend these, but I need Copilot Studio to do that. So big difference there. Last but certainly not least, over here on our right, we have custom Copilots. That's what we're talking mostly about here today. And that's when I'm going to use Copilot Studio or Azure AI Studio to build a Copilot from scratch. So we're going to talk heavy on Copilot Studio, and my friend Nico is going to pull in some Azure AI Studio examples for you as well. But that's what it sounds like, right? When I need full control and responsibility of Copilots within my organization, I will go to Copilot Studio and Azure AI Studio if necessary. Okay, hopefully that's a great level set, a great foundation of kind of how we think about Copilots here at Microsoft with some good examples for you here. But it can also help you determine which route you need to go in your journey. Now, once again, I admitted I am biased. I think Copilot Studio is the best because it offers you the most flexibility in those situations. So once again, if I want to build one, a custom one from scratch from a low-code perspective, I can start at Copilot Studio. I also use Copilot Studio to extend those first-party ones. Remember, we're not messing with those embedded ones or in-product ones. We can't change those. But if I need to build an extension, like I mentioned, for Copilot for M365, I would build something called a plugin, which is what would allow me to connect to those other SaaS providers like ServiceNow or Salesforce or any other system that we might need to bring in to, let's say, a Copilot for M365 experience. So depending on what your journey is, right, you can choose kind of where to start. Once again, you've heard me say it too many times. Start with Copilot Studio. You can start quick, and you can also fail fast, right? If we need to go to developer situation, we can do that as well. So with that said, hopefully I've established a good baseline for what a Copilot is and kind of what I should use to start. And we will jump into our Copilot Studio overview. So I've talked a lot about it already, but it's a great way to build intelligent generative AI chatbots inside of the Power Platform and inside the Microsoft ecosystem as a whole, right? Because it gives me a lot of incredible ways to do that. So I can use Copilot Studio and I can connect that to my Power Automate workflows, right? Both from a cloud and desktop perspective. I can escalate to live agents if I've got the right customer engagement platforms connected in the background. I can build a completely unique experience using prompts, plugins, and topics, which we'll see here in a little bit. But I can do all of that from Copilot Studio, as well as what Nico will show us, which is extending out to Azure AI Studio if necessary. So how will I do that, right? I have a couple different ways in which I can start building in Copilot Studio. Two of these are pretty new. Starting on the left here, we have templates. So I'm going to bring over a Copilot Studio example here just so we can kind of get some visuals on some of these. But the first two, still in preview, but pretty highly used to date. We have templates and natural language. We talked a little bit about that describe it to design it feature here. It is also in our Copilot Studio, as well as the idea of templates, right? So we've heard from our customers a lot, and we've started to see some of these templates, some of the things that customers are consistently using. You can click on these, and that'll kind of get you started spinning up your Copilot Studio bot pretty quickly. Or you can use natural language to describe it, right? Once again, you can just click one of these or use natural language. I'm going to jump into one I kind of already have going here to demonstrate our other two scenarios in which we're going to build. So once I jump into a Copilot, right, I then have the modern canvas, which is how most people are using Copilot Studio. But if you'd like to use a more code-friendly canvas to use YAML there, you can as well. I'll pull this right back over just to demonstrate quickly. I'm going to jump into a topic. There's Andrew's topic. Right, here's my modern canvas that I can then start to go in and build actions, ask questions, build out my topics for Copilot Studio, and really control the logic of how this bot is going to behave when it's talking to other people. And like I mentioned before, right, we can pop that open to a code editor. So this is copy and pasteable. So that's great, right? If I need to then, maybe there's a certain part of this Copilot Studio I want to go transition to a different Copilot, I can copy this code and or paste directly in here. So whichever way you're most friendly working in Copilot Studio, I think we have a good place for you to get started, whether that's templates, natural language, your canvas, or your code feeling here. So regardless of where you start, let's talk a little bit more in depth about how we're going to build this custom Copilot. And at the highest level, these are kind of our four main building blocks, right? We have our knowledge, which is where do I want to connect my Copilot Studio bot to pull information from or generate generative AI responses. That sounds redundant. Or I have my actions, right? When I talked earlier about Power Automate, pulling in cloud flows, I'll use actions to do that. So we'll see an example here in a little bit. Logic describes my topics. So that describes how I actually construct the conversation flow for a custom Copilot. And then channels being where do I want to deploy this at, right? So I have a lot of options for where to deploy at. So jumping into logic, we saw a little bit of that a second ago when I clicked into that topic there. But this is where I'm actually going to build the branches, the conditions, and the logic that goes into how my conversation should go about. So using topics as an example, right, I can create trigger phrases at the top of those. So when somebody, asks a question to my bot, it's looking for certain trigger phrases to start my conversation with the bot. So logic, right, just like I've mentioned there, it's going to use different conditions. It's going to use questions. It's going to use triggers. And then also the ability to pull in other actions and knowledge. One thing important to focus here on the topics is while we're going to talk about the knowledge and the action pieces of it, they all exist inside of a topic at some point. So you can create an action separately, right? Like I can go build a cloud flow somewhere else, but eventually it's going to land inside of a topic, inside of this logical flow. So that's why I kind of like to start with the logic of the topics when I'm talking about them, is because eventually they will land here when they're meant to be built inside of a custom Copilot. All right, let's talk about knowledge next. So if I jump to the next screen here. So my knowledge sources is how I'm going to start to pull in enterprise grade data or attach my documents or connect to a public website, right? These featured ones at the top are how we're mostly connecting to Copilot Studio bots these days. Public website, pretty straightforward, right? If I just want to point this to andrewswebsite.com, it has all my great frequently asked questions documents and all the information I put into my website already. I can just point that right to it, and then my bot is generating answers directly from the index site. So pretty impressive stuff there. It gets going very quickly. If I move my way over here to files, that's my ability to take a certain set of documents and upload them directly to my Copilot Studio bot. And really where that's landing in the background is Dataverse. So I'm uploading them directly to the Copilot Studio bot, but it's storing them in Dataverse in the background. So another great option, right, which you want to control specifically what these Copilot's going to be answering questions from or directing people with, I can do that by uploading directly to it. Another way to do this is connecting it to SharePoint or OneDrive locations. So this is a very common scenario. If we identify a SharePoint location you want to point your Copilot Studio bot to, you can do that. You do need to do some authentication for that in the background, which is necessary, obviously. That's an internal site. But you can point it to your SharePoint locations, and it'll actually index all of the layers now within your SharePoint locations. I think up until a couple months ago, that used to be restricted due to a couple layers. But now you can point it to the highest level of your SharePoint site, and it'll actually dig through the different layers of your SharePoint site to index and answer from those locations. Moving our way over to the right, we have the Dataverse knowledge source here. So where that differs from the files up here is I can actually identify Dataverse tables to answer questions, build a custom Copilot on top of. So an example being maybe I want to build a sales-oriented Copilot, and I want to point that at my accounts, opportunities, and invoice table that I have in Dataverse, right? That could answer a lot of questions from my sales folks if they're working in Dynamics for Sales, or maybe it's some sort of custom app you've built in Dataverse, right? That can answer a lot of questions just based off the data you already have in those tables. So you can point them right at Dataverse tables, and your bot's up and running, answering questions based on that structured data. Last but surely not least, we have Microsoft Fabric. I don't believe this one's available yet. It's coming soon. But if you're not familiar with Microsoft Fabric, that's one of our incredible data platforms, connecting a lot of different data platforms as to date, pulling in some Azure resources and I think Power BI resources. So that will also be able to be used as a knowledge source in the very near future for Copilot Studio. Down below here, we have some additional connectors that can reach out to some database-oriented things that you might have. We have obviously ones for ServiceNow. And as you can see down here, we get into our Power Platform connectors. So the Power Platform connectors really kind of take us more into the actions side of the house, not necessarily just the knowledge. But if you click there, it'll actually take you to the actions. So that's kind of why I like to end here. But just know at a high level on this page, right, I've got these top featured ones that people are commonly using as knowledge sources for my Copilot Studio, as well as some database connectors that you can use to ingest information and index it so that your Copilot can answer those questions. All right, let's move on to actions since we're recently talking about our connectors. And once again, right, I think the actions are actually what make Copilot Studio great. It is what allows you to build on some of these building blocks that already come with Power Platform. Once again, right, we talked a little bit about our pre-built connectors here at the bottom. I think I see 1,400 plus there. I think I heard somebody say 1,500 not that long ago, but either way, a lot of pre-built connectors out of the box that you can pull into your Copilot Studio here. And they're adding new ones every day, as well as the incredible ability to build your own custom connector, right? So I can still use that functionality in Copilot Studio as well. If I've got other applications that don't exist in my pre-built library, I can build that API as I need. Other things down here in our types of actions, flows, right? So this is where I can pull in and create Power Automate flows that go and do some action for me in the background as part of my Copilot Studio process. So, as an example, I have a chat experience happening with a customer, and they say they need to generate something. Maybe it's an email. Maybe they just want to get a quote, right? Think of the sales perspective. When they click that button, unbeknownst to them, it's going out and calling Power Automate to go generate a quote, maybe alert a couple of people, and all within the context of a chat experience for the user. So you can pull in cloud flows in the background, and anything you can build in Power Automate, you can bring into Copilot Studio here. It'll trigger from the chat experience, and then when that flow is done running, it will bring you the response in the chat experience as well. So you design the flow, and you can pull it into Copilot Studio here as well. Prompts, another incredible piece of this, right? So if you've used AI Builder in any of our other Power Platform products, you can use the GPT model from AI Builder to build prompts for Copilot Studio. So this is the main way and a great way on how you're going to build specific prompts to generate responses within your Copilot Studio, and how you can get very in-depth with that, right? Like it's using the GPT model in AI Builder. So if you've ever used that before, you're going to use that exact same experience. When you go to actually create a prompt, it'll actually take you to the AI Builder. And I can probably show that for you really quickly here. I'll just scroll down here. Right when I go to call an action, right here's where I can create a flow, and it'll launch Microsoft Flow from here, or I can create a prompt as well. So that's the one we were just talking about, so we'll use that. And this is literally just bringing up the GPT model from AI Builder, but inside of Copilot Studio so that you don't have to leave this page. But if I was to create a prompt here, I could actually go see it in AI Builder as well. So it's transferable between the two products if you were to open up AI Builder on the Power Automate side of things. So really cool stuff there, and a really powerful way that you can start to customize the responses of your Copilot Studio. Last but certainly not least, we have skills down at the bottom. So if any of the folks here on the call are experienced in building, building bots in Azure Bot Framework, you can actually turn those into skills and call them inside of Copilot Studio. So you don't have to recreate the wheel if you've already been building in the Azure Bot Framework, which is the Azure side of the house, right? The more pro dev friendly side of things. You don't have to recreate those in Copilot Studio. You can simply call them as what we call skills, so that bot can just call an additional bot, right? So you don't have to rebuild those. We call those skills in Copilot Studio. I think Nico will talk a little bit more about those, not a whole lot, but as one of the capabilities that we extend out to Azure AI. All right, certainly not last but not least, we have our different channels in which you can then deploy Copilot Studio bots. So we like to think of you build the bot and you can then go put it and meet your users where they're at. So if that's on a website, you can post it, right? You can create this bot and then put that on your own website or a custom website. You could also do that on a Power Page as well. So if any of you are building Power Pages, imagine you build a Power Page for your customers or your vendors or contractors to get in and interact with your data. Now you can put a custom Copilot Studio bot on that same Power Page that maybe goes and answers questions for them, right? Or pulls old historical data, whatever you want to surface for those users. You can drop Copilot Studio right on your Power Pages as well. So great use case, just dropping it on a website. We also have obviously our other out-of-the-box channels here like Teams, GroupMe, Skype, right? I think Slack's in here somewhere. Yep, it's in there. So a lot of great options right out of the box, as well as deploying to our customer engagement hubs. So obviously we're biased. We love our D365 customer service, but we have a lot of other popular ones in here as well that you can deploy these custom Copilots directly to in order to help your customers or your customer service agents. And that's also how you would connect to, not extend, but to transfer to a live agent, right? You're connecting these to a customer engagement hub. So a lot of great places to deploy these Copilot Studio bots. As you can see on the bottom left, there's also some other options from a more custom perspective using ISVs to get that done. So you're really not limited to where you can deploy these. A lot of great options. Work with your TSs. We would love to talk about use cases and just a general starting point for your Gen AI. But I think, once again, that starting point should be Copilot Studio. Okay, I've talked a lot. Hopefully there's some great questions in the chat here. If they haven't been answered, I'll jump in there and get answering as well. I'm going to kick it over to our friend Nico, who is going to jump in and talk Copilot Studio and Azure AI with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Hello, everyone. If you can see my screen.
Okay, great. You already took it? Cool.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Andrew. Awesome. So for the next 25 minutes, we've seen that how you can, spin up a value use case chatbot out of no code Copilot Studio. There are at times a need to expand the boundaries of Copilot Studio with pro code, hopefully Azure AI. So we'll cover and touch on that, on the typical patterns, so that when you're you've pushed the boundary of Copilot Studio, where do you go when you go with Azure AI? And then we'll jump into two demos. One is just traditional big ask chat with your data. We'll do that in no code, and then we'll show you as well how do we augment that RAG with pro code. And then we'll finish with a bot where we'll chat with our own AI model that we would have deployed on Azure AI. Typical pattern. So I have obviously Microsoft Copilot Studio, no code, in that context in the center. But when I'm reaching out to Azure AI, these are typical patterns. So first is, as a conversational user experience, you can augment the language services of the orchestration. And that is one Azure AI service. Same thing for the knowledge base. Azure has a great services around knowledge base, and Azure AI question and answer. That is also a great avenue. The next one is an important one, is AI search, right? They have many data science teams out there that have done terrific job from crafting, proprietary AI models. And sometimes all you need is just surface that RAG to the end user. So that will be our first demo where we will see how we bring RAG in Procode into our chat front-end experience. Copilot Studio in no code comes with already plenty of analytics. At that time, when you are especially for some of those volume critical use cases, you can even augment Copilot Studio with analytics and tools from with analytics from Azure services. The next one is API calls. So API calls thinks I am in my front end Copilot Studio and I need to go get data from ServiceNow, from Salesforce. But it also could be I need to ping my own chat model I just deployed, right? So this will be the second demo there. In there, we'll call the API that are coming from, in our example, Azure AI. Telemetry, you can also augment the telemetry of the bot with Azure services. Bot framework, Andrew touched on it, but essentially when you're working with Copilot Studio, it is, we call it, low floor, high ceiling. If you want to go all pro dev, be my guest on Copilot Studio. That is like the grandson of the bot framework per se. And last but not least is ALM, Application Lifecycle Management. While sometimes we can think, oh, those bots can deploy so fast, in reality, when those bots are in production, they are governed, and even from a development perspective, we'll connect and then manage those bots to a true ALM lifecycle management. So before I go to the two demos, one key features on the orchestration engine of conversational user experience. Andrew was touching on topics. So the way we're going to do, we're going to author those topics, and then we're going to have trigger phrases. And then the orchestration engine, if no topic triggers, then we're going to deflect it to a generated response. So this is where we'll go in no code, or this is where we go in pro code if we want to do RAG in pro code. And then depending on our use case, from an orchestration perspective, if the bot is not able to help the user, we can escalate that to a human team. So we won't demo that, but when you think about orchestration, about conversational AI, think about kind of those three stages. With that, let's go in the tool. Here. Okay, our first bot today is Lebron. So Lebron is a bot that is specialized in answering questions about NBA players. And then we've augmented Lebron with knowledge. So obviously, I could have get my knowledge from, like Andrew was saying, a public website, Fabric, Salesforce, you name it. In our example, we keep it easy. We are getting our knowledge from a Dataverse table. So think of it as just a regular table. What does that table include? Is a list of 10 players with their name and their height in centimeter and in foot and inches. So just there, we can set up like really the knowledge, and it does all these details matter, right? The way you're going to help the bot and depends on how you do and include description of the knowledge. That's going to help the bot find some of those answers. Same thing on the synonym side. So you can have true conversational English and add understanding of what those columns means. You can even add glossary, so in that case here, I want to make sure that when the user is saying age, from a knowledge perspective, age is the age of the player and not the age of the record. All right, so now if we chat with the bot, so we start with my first topic, a system topic, a conversation start. And this is very scripted. That is the topic that starts when the conversation starts. From there, I'm going straight directly to a new topic, And very scripted, I said, hey, my name is LeBron. I am your NBA virtual expert. My goal is to answer any question you may have. So this is what we see right here in the test window. So I'm going to say, how tall is Kevin Durant? Right? So I don't have any topic that talks about how tall is Kevin Durant. What I have is a generative conversational boosting generative AI topic, and then we can see in green the log of what is the bot doing. I have no topic trigger, so this generative answer topic and then topic triggers, and I have within that data source the knowledge from the players, and from there I can see that Kevin Durant is 6 foot 10 inches. Right? But now in the same spirit, if I ask how tall is Taylor Swift, which she's not an NBA player, so I should expect from the model to be able to know that it doesn't know to an extent, right? So I am sorry, I'm not sure I can help with that. Can you try rephrasing? So this is good. We are like in spirit fighting hallucination. Now, if I ask who is the GOAT, LeBron is the GOAT. No, we could not expect the least, from a bot called LeBron. But the way it's articulated here is just, it's a silly example, but to articulate the orchestration of the whole conversational engine. Right here, I have a very scripted topic that if the user says who is the GOAT, LeBron is the GOAT. I can add images. Here I'm showing that we can add, we can even make it fancy, add actions, and what have you. Right? So that's in no code. Now, let's say I want to bring my RAG in pro code. All I have to do is go to my system topic when my generative AI answer is, and not that one, like conversational boosting topic, the one we trigger at first. And then here in that particular no code node, if I want to skip the whole thing and then actually start leveraging a RAG that have deployed with Azure OpenAI services on your data, this is where I will do that. And then from there, I'll have access right in no code to, obviously deployment and so on, but more importantly, all, the temperature, the top P, and all of those parameters that goes under the hood when you deploy those LLM models. That is for this use case, how to chat with your data, either in no code or in pro code. Now let's go into the orchestration of how would bring a chat model directly with Copilot Studio. So through there, we're going to go straight to Azure AI Studio. So this is pro code here, right? But it's pro code, but it's still extremely simple, right? So the way it works is, think about it. You can deploy. There are plenty. There are about thousands and thousands of models catalog that you can deploy. Most of them as a service. So here we have obviously GPT-4, but you have all the five family of model, small language model. You have all the Llama model and so on. So for the purpose of the exercise, we have two models deploy on Azure AI. We have 5.3 medium, and that's about the equivalent of GPT-3 level, but super cheap to infer. Now that's 5 model. And then we have the Llama model, from Meta, that is open source as well, and we are within the level of GPT-4o Cloud top tier 1 model. So I have these two models, and for each models, Azure AI provide me with what's the endpoint, what is the key, and what is the API route. So from there, I just need to HTTP ping the API from Copilot Studio and start chatting with those models. So the bot we've built for that, just for the example, put it this way, it is not that complicated. So we do have a topic when we start a new conversation, like Oops, excuse me. No. No. Conversation start. Similar to earlier, I start the new conversation. Paf. We go to a directed reset topic. First thing we do is we create a conversation in Dataverse. So just to save our conversation. So this is just the Power Automate flow that has no input and come back with the conversation ID. We just created it. So if we drill down into that Power Automate flow here, that is literally 2 steps, right? Create a new conversation name. I'm creating a new record, and I just responded with the conversation ID of that particular conversation. All we're doing is carrying that as a front-end variable. But you start seeing here that the link between Copilot Studio and Power Automate is native. And more than that is the Power Automate comes out of the box with Copilot Studio. So you're entitled to use all of those premium connectors that Andrew was talking earlier within the licensing of Copilot Studio. And after that, when my conversation in a data model start pretty cryptic, just hello, my name is Copilot, and then this is all we see here, right? From there, put a variable as the system prompt. So nothing fancy, right? Just you are chatting with the user. This is the system prompt we want for chatting. And then here, initialize which model, which API, and which API key we want to ping. So here we are starting to ping the file3 chat completion endpoint and the endpoint key right here. And that's about it. So now from there, if I start chatting and I say, so this is my test window, I say, hello, how are you? So that topic should trigger, and then nope, in theory, I should have no topic that triggers. I'd have no topic that triggers for hello, how are you? So what's going to happen is our fallback topic is going to trigger. So this is all we're doing here is we just keep looping on the fallback topic. So similar to before we created a conversation, now we have the conversation ID. We can just create a message in Dataverse. And then once we have that, we call our chat model right here. So if we go into that Power Automate flow, we are right here where for my chat coming from the front end, my conversation ID, the system prompt I initiated, what is the API endpoint, and what is the API key. Crazy enough, if you look, so this is how to ping, this is the HTTP to ping OpenAI. So OpenAI is, they don't use bearer, they use API key. But the rest of most of the models, they use bearer, right? That is the only difference. And it's such, so basically you can switch between models. I don't want to say it's a commodity, but almost. We are at the point that here we do have more variable in the header of the API that actually we have in a body. In a body, we just have the message table. And then the API is giving us back the answer, right? So now that gives us that. So now we are right here chatting with 5.3 models. Now, in that sense, now if in the spirit of, let's go to team. I think I should go to team right here. Oh no, I'm going here. So in the spirit of here, I'm just looping. But in the spirit of, if you think about the ChatGPT UI, you say, oh, I want a new conversation. Here, the way to ask a new conversation and kind of clear the chat, it will be just to ask the model for a new conversation. So at this point here, the fallback topic is not triggering because it is being overwritten by start a new conversation. That topic, all it does is just say happy to start a new conversation and then reset and goes to the reset conversation topic, which is just the topic we had written earlier, and then just go back on our feet, right? And then in the same spirit, as I can change from GPT-4 to GPT-4o in ChatGPT, I can ask the chatbot switch to Llama. Done. I just updated my AI model with Llama 3. And all it is here is just one, we have one topic to switch to Llama 3. So that is the topic that's trump or override the call to the chat model. And all we're doing is based on those phrases, triggering, and then just resetting, just setting the chat completion variable to Llama, and then the end user key to Llama, and a nice note to confirm to the user that we just updated to Llama. So this is an example with obviously 5.3 and Llama 3. But I think as a data science team, when you're thinking, especially if you spend times, sweating those AI models, sweating those use cases, and you're not that far to put them and deploy them in the hand of your users, right? Copilot Studio is right there to be the lipstick in a good way on top of those AI, and then meet your user where they are. Because like the bot you see right here, like Andrew was talking about channels. Here, that bot is fully secure. I cannot deploy it anywhere but on Teams, right? And then right here, this is the same. So this is the same chat we were testing here that is available. In Team. I'm going to ask for a new convo, and then just as an add-on to ChatGPT, I can even, because I have access to topics now, I can ask, what is your system prompt? Not we're going to give that to all the users, but right here, I have a topic that give me scripted system prompt. And then if I want, update the system prompt right in the chat, and it was just updating the system prompt from hand variable of the chat, and we'll be good to go. So back on our Azure AI, to close the loop. So we demo chat with your data in no code. We presented how we extend that with any kind of index and search from Azure AI. And then we presented also how to call API calls from Microsoft Copilot Studio with a concrete example of whatever AI chat model in the backend. That concludes the demo for today. I would say plenty of resources here, right? If you guys, take a screenshot, go on those things. If you have access to Copilot Studio and you have questions, please reach out to the team. If you do not have access to Copilot Studio, it's okay. We try Copilot Studio with the Copilot Studio trial version, and then, make an opinion for yourself, and then please engage with us and then with your Microsoft folks. Another good resource is get hands-on with Copilot Studio in a day, literally in a day, right? That means like take a Friday off and then put maybe 2 Fridays, block 2 Fridays, and then those are great resources to get you started. And like I said before, it's a low entry, high ceiling type of tool. It's simple. It is not easy.